Ramsey Jamoul is owner and CEO of Unified Esports Association, formerly Midwest Esports. Ramsey began his career as one of the key founders of Wichita State University's esports team, and he was instrumental in building an infrastructure for esports in the United States. Please join me in welcoming Ramsey Jamoul to Groover Labs.
All right, am I hooked up already?
I think so.
Good.
Did you turn the mic on?
I did. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate being back here. It's the second time now I get to speak on the stage and being able to compete in a little pitch competition here not that long ago in reality. So I'm really excited to be back. So thanks for having me. Very much so, I would love to start off by just giving you a little understanding on where my background's at and some of the things that I've been able to work in. So Unified Esports Association is my company that I founded. I'm the CEO, and we started actually here in Wichita in 2012, actually at Wichita State as a student. I was able to compete and represent the university. I've had a lot of support throughout the entire time. So what became a small Wichita project is now a national company that we've been able to take and really show off kind of the best that Wichita has to offer. So if you would allow me to get started, I think first things first is to really start diving into a little bit of what esports is. This is what Mark Cuban said in 2016, so quite some time ago, where we actually have an opportunity to see an industry that was ready and primed to explode. Mark Cuban invested and actually owns gambling companies as well as multiple teams in esports now. And of course, I saw that and was like, well, now I need to get into this as well. So with esports is competitive video gaming. It's just like traditional sports where there's crowds, people are fans of professional players and they're there to represent different areas or really just there to win competitions and show off to their fans. We've been able to really hone in and see the growth of esports in the last few years, but it's just like traditional sports. There's multiple titles like baseball and basketball. We have League of Legends, Overwatch, and a few others. It's incredibly accessible. Anyone can play. As long as you have a toaster, you can play esports practically. Maybe a little exaggerating, but the popularity is massive. This is something that all across the world people play video games, and now they're doing it on a whole new level. The one key difference, and this is something to know going into this, that the publishers own the video games. This isn't like traditional sports where no one owns basketball. You actually have to go to Blizzard, who owns Overwatch, and make sure you accept their terms and agreements before you get to play. It makes it a completely new and a little tricky industry to navigate. Just to give you a little bit of the scale on how massive this industry is, it's 15 times bigger than Hollywood. This year alone, that's the gaming industry that's selling video games, that's marketing the Switch and all of those products. The esports industry, a very small segment of that, is the competitive side. It's $1 billion industry, and that has grown rapidly in the last few years. It was projected to grow around 10% this year, and it's a little less than that with COVID kind of making some adjustments to that growth, but it's still on a positive net growth even during all of this time because of its accessibility. There's over 500 million people who watch esports around the world at least once a month. Half of those are dedicated fans. So this is something that people have been doing for quite some time, and it's grown into a massive audience. Just to give you a little perspective about one of the video games, League of Legends is owned by Riot Games. So that's the publisher, and the basic information is it's 5 versus 5. It's played on the computer, and it's a PC game available for everyone. It's free to play, so anyone can download and move forward. Do I need to move?
No, you didn't share your screen. So
okay.
Here's this first snafu.
Not a problem. We can.
Well, how do I get to that?
Oh, let me. If I go back to Chrome, you know, with tech, there's one certainty: it will break.
Right.
All right. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm not sure I do either.
I'll press exit. That should pop it out.
Well, where's the Zoom thing? There we go.
Oh, I think we're getting there.
All right, now you can.
All right.
Wow, sorry about that.
Not a problem. We will just take one slide back to our industry slide. We're good? Awesome. All right. So very, very much like esports, we're flexible and we're quick to make changes. So just that said, kind of wrapping up that industry, we definitely have a massive industry on our hands, and League of Legends, like one of many games in the industry, is very specific to its player base. There's 5 versus 5 that play it on PC, and it's free to play. It's the 3rd most popular sport in the United States for those under the age of 35. This is something that for over the last few years has been a shift and a change. We're seeing that gamers are loving the sport just like traditional sports, and they're getting older. Give you a little perspective about where the universities are at, because they see this growth just as much as everybody else does. And they know if the youth are interested, they should be in it too. And hundreds of universities have set themselves up and now are offering scholarships. They have paid staff. They're setting these up just like varsity programs in an athletic department. They now have esports departments or combine them all together. Some schools even have multi-million-dollar budgets with donors and funds supporting that program. Wichita State is one of the very many lucky schools that has an esports program, and I was able to help be a part of that. When I was a student there, we helped and represent for StarCraft, which is my favorite video game. And we played against other schools online. Now it is much more rigorous. There's conferences and national championships, and Wichita State is definitely geared towards having a great season. So stay tuned and make sure you keep your eyes on them. But that is where I got my start. Wichita Esports was the first iteration of this business. And in 2015 is when I really took it off campus and graduated. I founded and hired an employee, and we really started to grow it from there. But the opportunity started by really having the community around me. At Wichita State, I had the right people that gave me the right education. They gave me the right experience and advice and helped me get to that step. So the communities that were extremely influential, besides Wichita State, of course, I was able to take part in Launch Prep, a business program. I was able to go actually multiple times for Startup Grind, speak, as well as attend multiple events. 1 Million Cups, Startup Grind, E2E introduced me to all of my local investors that helped fund and grow this. So we raised a little bit of money that year, and we even got a free office space because all of the right things were around us, and we had the right things in our community. So I was able to hire my first employee, and I was able to start testing our minimal viable product and really start growing it to a position that I wanted to take it. And with that said, we got some regional reach. And of course, the first thing that we did, rebranded, because that's obviously what we have to do if we're going regional, right? So now we're Midwest. Through this change, we started approaching other states and started hosting events for many other people. So this continued to grow, and we saw that we were uniting people. Putting them shoulder to shoulder gave them much better, much better experiences where they're sharing the same interests, but they're actually having social experiences. And we're giving them opportunities that are actually career opportunities, scholarships, and things that are helping them grow, not just as players, but as an individual as well. And we had events in many states, upwards to 25 states at our peak when we were hosting all of our events. And this is something where obviously the Midwest did not cover us at all. But we started seeing that we could start planting new products. And one of them, I'm very happy to say that we worked with League of Legends to create the first traveling conference for esports. So Wichita State being one of the schools, we have 8 schools that we started and now expanding it to 16, where they get to travel to each other's schools, albeit this year we're probably playing online. but we can do that. And with that, we're going to be able to really handle a normal traditional conference, just like normal sports for esports, where every school represents and has scholarships and a coach that's helping them really get the best education they can while playing esports on the side. We also were very lucky to acquire a couple companies. Local Legends Gaming is a Kansas City company with video game trucks, and the ability to have education for youth was a great addition for us. We saw that as a great need. And Upsurge Esports was primarily targeting semi-professional and amateur players. We thought that would be a great part to our funnel. We have a lot of collegiate players, and that's where our focus was. Having that next rung up was very advantageous for us. So we went after those. To help us accomplish all this, I had more communities that stepped up to help me. I was lucky to be in pipeline. I was lucky to get another office space for fairly cheap, and to the point where practically free. And that's allowed us to get to the point where we hired more employees so that we could scale. We actually raised a little bit more money. In this case, up to this state, we've raised over $2 million, and it's primarily being with and amongst these groups. They helped connect us and grow our idea into something very viable, and very happy to have that support. Sorry. So with that being said, going back to where we are now and everything that we've learned, especially with the communities that were there to support us in taking what we know about the esports industry, we knew where we fit in. The 1% for esports is very well defined. You can buy a franchise for upwards to $35 million to be a professional franchise spot in video games. Our goal was to help players get there. Semi-professional and amateur players could play in our Upsurge League. With our collegiate program that we've just created this year, we're now able to facilitate not just our conference, but leagues across the board for all universities. And then taking that same model for youth and hobbyists, we can now create a viable league for anybody at home that wants to play during this time. With that said as well, there's 200 million esports fans that play and watch regularly around the world, and that's who we're targeting. Upsurge, working with League of Legends, Rocket League, and Rainbow Six, and a few more to come. We have 1,500 players that we've had this year purchase spots into our league, 3 of which this last season actually went pro. Team Liquid hired 1, and 100 Thieves hired 2 players, and we're very proud to say that these are now fully paid players. So this is the proof of our pipeline that we've created, both of which are very, very successful professional brands. On our collegiate side, we're honing in with Counter-Strike, Overwatch, and Rocket League, being able to really facilitate preseason for these video games. We're really giving universities the ability to access and use the programs that they've created. So now they have scholarships and they have players, they need content to play in. And lastly, the Community Esports League. Specifically targeting youth and hobbyists, it's our goal to set up a SaaS model. So our website right now handles matchmaking for these players, and it gives them the ability to play with anyone around the world. So we started off with Super Smash Brothers, Fortnite, and Call of Duty, quickly expanded into 4 other video game titles due to the ability for youth to really get involved. So we're treating this just like a soccer league that would be for the YMCA. And so just to take it back again, with the separation of customers that we had and looking at who gamers really are, we knew we fit into the age ranges about right here with the different products. And CEL is going to be our biggest. We knew that from 26 to 40-year-olds are who we're targeting. So to be clear, the average gamer is 36 years old, not 12. There's just as many 12-year-olds as there are 65-year-olds that play video games. So with that being said, we're targeting parents now, this next generation who's teaching who their favorite video game player is. And they're letting this next generation learn their passion, just like traditional sports has been passed on for generations. And this is a new time for esports, a very exciting time. But it's the families that we're going after. At this point, more people are in a situation where they're living with their kids and their spouse that play video games than any other situation. And so that's who our real target is. I'm very excited about getting into this new ecosystem that we've created. With that, Upsurge being really honed in on high competition, the prestige and career opportunities that we can offer. The universities are providing scholarships, educational content, but still that ability to really have the ability to get out and reach the next potential generation. And then Community Esports League, really to focus on the youth and hobbyists, gives a large audience that we all get to have shared experiences with and really have a shared interest. But it's a fair, structured, and safe league that we're pulling content from the universities as well as our professional leagues so parents know it's safe and trusted. And now we're also giving them all the opportunities that they need to get their kid to that next level as well. With that said, we are putting all of our products together, and over the last 3 years, we've had 300,000 people go through all of our events and online leagues. So we've been very fortunate to be able to service so many people. And ultimately, we've been able to really establish sponsorships on top of this and build that bridge for the people who want to go after this audience and the people that we work with and trust us very well. We've also been, of course, our on-site events being on hold for the year. We've been holding on that and focusing primarily on our online leagues until we can hop back into that. And the team that makes it happen, of course, because this is the special sauce behind our magic, is the people that really put this together. The one thing that combines us all is that we're extremely passionate about video games. We all have a very passionate on that, but we all have a very big diversity that we bring to the team. Very excited about that as well. So with that said, that's where Unified Esports Association's at and how we've been really fortunate to have communities being able to leverage us. And I've been very fortunate to say that with all of these, and very fortunate to have Groover Labs invite me out as well and be able to add to my list of communities that's helped me get here. So thank you very much. Here we go. I'm gonna open this now too. I'm gonna take this time to take a long drink of water while you.
Oh, Dave.
So the whole concept, Ramsey, of scholarships for students and all this in school, to me, it's just kind of mind-boggling. But when you compare it that, we give scholarships to baseball players and golf players and everything else, it's like, okay, that makes sense. I had a couple questions in this area. First of all, is there a season? There's a season for sports. Is there a season for e-gaming? And do these students get a full ride scholarship? Is it a partial scholarship? And if you could mention some of the other universities besides WSU.
So I would say some of the notable universities, Maryville University in Missouri or Harrisburg University in Philadelphia, both of which do offer full ride scholarships for their players and treat it almost like a professional team. They hired professional coaches that were previously in esports to come in and start their program. And likewise, that's what they're seeing out of their students as well. So very good approach on what they're trying to do. They're very only interested in winning. So that's the approach for what they're going for. In some other universities, they're more focused on the educational content. Wichita State, for instance, teaches a class to help educators teach esports in school. And that's actually something that developed here in Wichita, right outside in Mays, actually Mays Complete High School. They created a full curriculum, 180-day plan for teachers to be able to actually start educating students through an extracurricular class. The benefits out of that were increase in GPA and increase in attendance by a large percent, a 12% increase in attendance and a 1.6 point increase in GPA. They just started showing up to math, English, and science more because they were happy to be at school. It was really what it came down to. And I think the same benefit for the universities. So there's multiple ways. They're recruiting with it. They're showing off just like traditional sports, and they're able to actually keep culture at the university growing where now they're giving interest to the students and the students give interest back. So there's multiple benefits why universities want to get into it and and they treat it just like traditional sports.
And then is there a calendar season?
Oh yeah, I apologize. For the seasons, we're very fortunate that we don't have seasons. There's championships every year, and a lot of it is starting to come into seasons like that. So in the professional world, it very much is now getting to a timely manner where we can expect the video games to be played. On the collegiate level, it's now being shaped. So we've chosen to host Rocket League in the spring. So I guess that's the season for Rocket League for collegiate. So same for League of Legends.
My question is, are these going to be filtered down into the high schools as far as not just out at Mays where they kind of developed it, but around here locally, or?
So very excited about that as well. We've been working pretty closely with USD 259.
My son mentioned it to me. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. They actually recently, I think it's near a $250,000 investment into equipment and different things that they can start esports at 8 schools. So 4 middle schools and 4 high schools. Southeast Buffaloes are going to be one of them. So proud of that. But they're actually having those classes as well as extracurricular teams that play outside the classes as well. More than likely that'll expand to the entire district soon.
Very cool. And so then do they go pro, as you say, like through the high school thing or through the leagues that you have, or both?
I would say for our kind of definition of professional players are ones that are getting paid to play. Some of our teams, for instance, 100 Thieves is actually a professional team that plays in our Upsurge League. It's their lowest tier or their amateur team, so they recruit, and that's how they kind of get the best talent. Some of the kids actually go straight from high school to being professional players, and that's the more common track right now. Our goal is to make sure that the colleges are teaching them things that are more beneficial than what they would get just off of some raw talent. And so that's the goal. By producing better programs at the university level, we're going to have some skills that are going to be taught during that are going to help them in their career and hopefully give them a long and fruitful professional esports career.
Cool. So then how would you go about getting a scholarship? Sorry, hogging the mic.
Oh, well, there is a number of ways. Actually, be recruited, or some of the same what would be traditional, I guess, recruitment tools for sports are now using esports as well. So kids can now search by scholarships for universities, and esports is primarily just listed with track, field, and the rest of them. And so generally speaking, that's a very common scholarship that they're offering. I believe Wichita State is offering a few for the different games. They have 40 varsity players, and then they have intramural sports. So there's multiple levels of entry there too. So
very good. Thank you.
No problem.
So are these, Ramsey, typically done like an arena? You know, is it an on-site event? Or are these done virtually, you know, between teams in remote locations? Or how are most of these events held?
So all events right now, of course, being online for us, we've been very fortunate with esports being one of the few sports that runs online without being in-person events. However, for traditional events, we try to get as much social experiences as we can. I think those are the most beneficial for players. They get to build their network. They also get to learn what it's like to be on stage, and hopefully that's something that they're going to need to know as they progress in their career. So there's definitely a lot of benefits for us doing as much on site. Esports Stadium Arlington is by far the largest. So Arlington invested $10 million into their convention center and turned it into an esports convention center where they host traditional events like Pepsi's conference or things like that they would normally host, but then it's got all the production they need to do high quality production for video games with LED boards and the full 9 yards. And I would never suggest that Wichita would think to do something like that either.
And as Wichita State, I thought I heard that they were developing an arena or something. Is that?
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some talks of some buildings going up at Wichita State. One of the nice parts, they just finished their practice room. So for the 40 varsity players, they actually have a dedicated space for them to play in right in the Heskett Center. And now they also have a couple other spaces for the rest of the students to play in. But definitely universities are getting to the point where the next step is they're going to need a stadium with crowds to be able to handle what they're looking for.
I found it interesting, your two acquisitions and kind of your strategy to go from the whole continuum below pro. What does your competition look like? Are there others who are trying to compete in singular spaces or throughout that whole continuum?
Because esports is so, I would say, fragmented or maybe just a new industry in general, every video game has its own, I would say, path to pro. And so for League of Legends, for instance, we're part of the scouting grounds, which is synonymous with the combine for an NFL. That's where every player wants to go and play so that they're getting recruited and being watched. So the winners of our Upsurge League get to go there for League of Legends. There is a few other leagues that also funnel into that we have competition with. And I believe that's a good, healthy competition where now they have some opportunities as a player to go and play in multiple leagues. We definitely have some I would say in amateur space and some competitors, but it's a little more open. And collegiate is probably the biggest focus right now with the opportunity and the growth for universities of the last few years. Luckily, we've actually worked directly with the publishers, so they give us the rights to host all of the competitions that we host. So generally speaking, that's the hardest hoop to jump through to get their approval to be able to represent their brand, really.
Okay, I'm going to pass the mic over, but I was going to mention anyone online, just go ahead and chat your questions online if you have any.
So I was going to ask about the community aspect of what you do. Video games probably have a lot of stereotypes out there. You mentioned the 12-year-old and things like that. What part of your company, how much effort do you put into the whole community, trying to make sure things like abuse don't happen and just making it a positive place? Can you speak to that, please?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's probably one of our biggest concerns when hosting any event. There is a lot of what you consider toxicity that happens with video games and being anonymous. That's the nice part about where we sit in esports. Most of what we do is not anonymous. People are trying to get their name out there. They're trying to meet new people. Generally speaking, when you can get the lashback from that, you try to avoid being rude. But generally we haven't had as much issue because they're there for a specific reason and they all respect that reason more than they would disrespect each other. Luckily, to the point of some of the things that we've tried to do, we're looking at being able to, one, try to get more diversity with PC gamers is very specific to the demographic that gets to really afford a $3,000 PC. So that's one of our big concerns, and how can we help really instigate more people to be able to have the accessibility. And then maybe another point, working with the universities, we actually get to develop quite a bit of educational content. And so we try to push that out alongside of all of our community esports league and have regular content that comes with it, whether it's information on how to get scholarships, how to play better, or just how to play healthy. And some of that education, I think, helps quite a bit as well.
Oh, do you have an online one? Okay, no hit you next, Joseph.
Hi, I'm going to read a couple online comments and questions. First, from Don Nance. He just said that he was happy to see that you guys work with T3 at the start of your career, and they're super proud of you. So just want to pass that along.
Thank you very much, Don.
The next question is, do you see a place in esports for the development of approved and, quote, chipped keyboards and mice to ensure fair play by making sure the equipment is equivalent between players?
That's actually a really good point, and a lot of tournaments will actually have very specific recommendations or requirements on what you can bring in. Almost always people are allowed to bring their headset, their mice, and keyboards. That's their personal bat, ball, and glove, if you wanted to use that analogy, what feels good for them. There are certain things, especially when it comes to console gaming, that you can, add little things that help push the button just that much faster for you, or cheating to some extent. We're trying to, alleviate a lot of that by having the focus on the player's skill Of course, we're always going to have people who bend the rules, but I think it comes back to that same point about respect. Generally speaking, people respect why we're doing this and they want to see it continue. And the one thing that you can do to ensure it doesn't continue is to break the rules. So luckily we have that going for us. But we do check most equipment when it comes to some customized equipment.
Hey, Joseph.
I have a question more with like the evolution of your idea and making it a reality from, okay, I guess I'm curious as far as when you guys felt like you were really onto something and when we decided, hey, we need to talk to some people and raise some money, like when you felt like you were at that point, and then after that, the process of maybe some of those other organizations or accelerators that you went to, kind of, could you elaborate on that some more?
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely didn't do it in that order. I think when the idea first came, that's like, let's go get some money. Didn't happen until I fleshed out the idea. So luckily no one buys into your ideas until they're usually worthy enough or you can sell it really well. And
how many users did you have before you like got to that point, or people using it?
So actually we had probably hosted maybe 4 years of experience hosting events where before, I guess, 2018, when I hired my first employee, that's when I kind of considered us starting our business. That pivotal point was me being introduced at Startup Grind to one of the investors who was a speaker at the time, having 2 or 3 people around me that were, whether it was E2E or the individuals at Startup Grind that kind of helped introduce that introduction. And they all beat me up on my idea before that introduction. So I got pretty good advice from them. So luckily I had really good, honest opinions, and that's what I've kind of chased in all of the pipeline or launch prep and some of the other programs that I was lucky to be a part of. All of it is about getting you as honest feedback and as quickly as possible. It's about failing fast and making sure that you can make pivots and change at the same time, not trying to lose it all. So. Did that fully answer it?
Yeah.
You might have had it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
We have one more online question.
And you may have answered some of this while I was monitoring, but the question was, are local esports at schools computer only, or are they also doing consoles?
That's actually a pretty good point. Almost all universities are only PC. And that's one of the, I would say, the downfalls of making sure diversity is an important part. When some kids don't have an opportunity for a scholarship because they've never had a computer at home to have the practice that they need is incredibly important. I believe we're looking at having Smash, and this is way loose, so don't hold me to this. But I believe Super Smash Brothers is one of the video games that is going to be at the high school level here in town. And then at universities are looking to pick it up as well. So that would be one of the first console games that's going, I would say, wide. Madden and NBA 2K, so some of the sports games are looking at maybe getting an entrance into it too. So maybe provide some more opportunities on the console side. But generally speaking, PC is where your career is going to be right now.
I have another question. So I've read, and I think Tracy mentioned that esports is a billion-dollar industry in 2020. So if I'm a chief marketing officer or a marketing director or manager at a company, and I want to advertise, what do I do? Who do I contact? Where's a good place to put my money?
Definitely. I think that's one of the opportunities with esports right now, being able to get into an audience that probably haven't been able to reach because they're not on Facebook anymore. They're using other material, and they're not looking at billboards. They have built-in ad block practically. And this is who we're trying to advertise to. There's a trust that they've built with us as well as other tournaments and opportunities. That trust is what we really can offer to other organizations that are looking to market to this audience. If they trust us and you come and sponsor one of our events, that trust starts to be associated, and that's a natural evolution that you want to have in a relationship building with that client or that customer that could be potential for you. And so that's something that we've tried to look at, being able to start from the get-go. Well, how does our mission align first? Because if your mission is to take money from us, and we're probably not as interested in it, and we're not going to go with those kind of partnerships. But the missions that are truly impactful, our mission trying to create this pipeline, trying to give people experiences and opportunities, if you can align with that, this is a perfect opportunity to get your message out there and build trust with these customers.
Ramsey, I have a question. So what does a college competition look like? I mean, is it so for each game, is there say a number 1, number 2, and number 3 player? And is it head to head, or just what does it look like?
Yeah, great question. League of Legends is by far the most popular in the collegiate space. It's been around for about 10 years. And they offered quite a bit of support to universities. So universities picked it up right from the get-go. It's 5 versus 5. And I would say it's kind of a tug of war type game, with not getting too into the details on it. Your whole goal is to push them into their base and kind of take over. And each person has a specific role that they've got to fill in the team, just like you'd talk about a center for basketball or anything like that. So they have to know everything that comes with that position, the ins and outs on who your opponent's going to be and how they're going to work against you, and some of the strategies that you may need to learn are very important. And so at a collegiate competition, you're going to see players that this is what they do. Like a basketball player at a university, they're going there to get their degree, not really associated with basketball, but when they're on scholarship, that's 90% of their time outside of education. And that's what these players are doing as well at that top level. Now, granted, maybe on a junior varsity or a casual level, you're not going to see that much commitment. But this is very much so very important to the people who play and want to win the national championship for universities. So I'd say it's a pretty good experience if you ever get the chance to go and watch some college kids yell at each other on computers. So.
Yeah, I'm curious from a telecom industry. Do you have a recommendation, like when kids are practicing, or how much bandwidth are they needing to push?
Right.
And what kind of latency are they wanting? And do you have a preferred vendor, that you?
Well, we don't have a preferred vendor at the moment, so I think maybe there's some opportunity. However, ironically, video games don't take much bandwidth while you're playing. It does take a consistent bandwidth, and that's the one thing that maybe that's the reason why I keep getting beat by all the Western Kansas people. Is that? But really, it does come down to the video game updates are probably the one thing that is skyrocketing right now, with memory going up. So they think they can make the video game as big as well. And so those happen quite frequently, and those are big enough to, I think, like now I'm getting really nerdy into this. It's about 200 gigabyte update for Call of Duty just came out. Well, that's like almost your limit for the month on what you would normally have in most people's services. And that's one game that updates regularly. So that's probably the biggest concern. And if they don't have the internet or the capability, you're going to be waiting 2 days as I'm going to play this game today. So definitely some big limitations if you don't have the right internet.
Since you've started the different competitions, have the games that the players are playing changed that much? Or is it like, let's say like 3 years from now, is it still going to be League of Legends? Or is it, I guess, do the games change that much? And then if they do, how are they going to just get everyone? I guess because it probably takes a long time to excel at that. So
that's actually a really good point. And I think it's an interesting thing that we're trying to figure out with esports as it goes on. Couple scenarios. League of Legends has been around for 10 years. Counter-Strike has been around for 20 years. Very successful professional scenes. It's not going away. League of Legends actually calls it the perfect imbalance. So they slowly change their game so the best player can never always be the best. And so they slowly change it. So you have to learn the new skills and you have to learn whatever the next new thing is without it changing so drastically that it's a whole new video game. And that's how they've been able to really keep a game alive and fresh. It's not like football. They're not going to change the rules every year or halfway through the season at that. And League of Legends, that's a regular thing, just like most video games. However, to that same point, Overwatch is probably one of the best examples of a new video game that's come out with relatively in the short last 5 years. They have a very successful professional scene, and Valorant just popped over. Very similar video game in terms of playability. A lot of those players are leaving Overwatch because the opportunities in Valorant are better. And they have, roughly speaking, the same skill sets to play both games. Now, granted, still a learning curve. You're going from baseball to basketball is very difficult. But if you're, going from soccer to football is probably not, well, I'm going to start arguing with sports guys, so I don't want to go there either. But it is a little easier to switch for certain games and some career opportunities where one video game may just have a lot more money to be made in that game. You'll make a business decision if you're going to do it for a career.
Do you think, are you planning on like with the revenue for your business or your company to where you get enough users at some point that then the video game publishers say, hey, like you guys have to use this game, or not, you don't have to, but you're having more influence with regard to that as far as, hey, we've got this huge user base and then, yeah.
We've actually had some really good opportunities to work with all the publishers. League of Legends been by far the easiest to work with since they have the longest history in esports on a structured level. So they're working with us to create, like I said, the first traveling conference. And last year was our first year together. Our model for the conference is now how conferences are going to be, the contracts that they have to sign for League of Legends. So we're kind of helping in some of those notes. I would love to be to the point where our user base is all they need. But frankly speaking, I think that would be maybe an exaggeration of our abilities to try to take the entire market. I think there's going to be some room for everybody for sure. But I'd love to get to the point where we have a little more weight against them.
If someone else has a question, I'm kind of hogging this.
So Ramsey, you started here in Wichita, you grew to the Midwest, and now you're a national brand. Do you also see an opportunity internationally? Are there leagues internationally, or is that happening?
We did learn. I will say it took us 3 times, but we made a brand that's not locked into a region. So the Unified Esports Association does have, we have some Canadian teams on the university level and on the semi-professional and amateur, Latin, and a few other outside the United States. So we were a little wiser on that one.
Thank you.
Ramsey, do you feel like you have a handle yet on, say, 3 to 5 years from now, where the largest component of your revenue will come from? I mean, is it advertising? Is it subscriptions? Is it registration fees for in-person events? Or
I definitely think it's going to be our community esports league is going to be our biggest driver. That's going to be our SaaS model that we want to have and grow that user base. Keep Upsurge and our collegiate leagues kind of niche where it's really hyper focused on the value that we're adding to them. But the community esports league will probably be our biggest revenue driver. So in combination, our ecosystem works very well, but we're definitely looking at that being, I guess, what funds our business in general.
So from a professional standpoint, I would presume that a professional player is only on one game, or do they? Okay.
Generally speaking, they don't switch too often unless the game is kind of similar to some extent.
Like you were talking about before. Mm-hmm. And then on a professional level, how do they earn their compensation? I mean, do they have a sponsor that's behind them, and then they earn winnings from competitions and so on and so forth?
Actually, there's a couple models, and I don't think the sports teams have quite figured it out on what they're going to do. Overwatch actually started a franchise, and League of Legends started a franchise a few years ago. where they started selling off the franchise slots. So that's, you're talking the level of Jerry Jones, Rick Fox, Michael Jordan. These are the people who own those teams that are funding those to start. And they're treating them just like traditional sports, where they want to build a stadium, they want people to sell tickets and grow the audience and merchandise sales around it. So that's primarily how those would function. Sponsorship is 80 to 70% of the revenue right now, though, with it being such a new market and very difficult to reach these people other than through some of their interest, which it's YouTube and esports. That's going to be one of the pathways I think that really funds and has kept esports growing. Yeah, I'd say for the most part, FaZe Clan is an interesting professional team that started from YouTube as a streaming service. So they were a group of influencers that played video games. And so they had a huge following where their whole job was to create content on YouTube, and then they started playing in tournaments, and then they became a professional team. So there's a few models out there, but generally speaking, get as many users as you can, and hopefully they give you money through merchandise or tickets or whatever the case is, or you get sponsors to help kind of cover those costs. That's usually the professional teams model.
Like, do you have any competitors, or like, is there like, let's, like the AFC and the NFC, like you're the, the United Esports Association. Is there another group that's on the same level doing the same thing that you're doing? I'm sure there's multiple of them, but.
Definitely. I think one of the ones that's probably closest is High School Esports League. So they specifically run high school leagues for the nation, as well as whoever will kind of set up a league specifically. They're actually based in Kansas City, ironically pretty close. We've actually been able to host their championship. So ironic part about esports as well. Your competitors are also your potential partners. And since there's so much open space, we're either helping them with live events and they're helping us run some things, but to some extent we are direct competitors. And that would be one. Challenger Uprising is one that competes with, say, Upsurge in the amateur level, but there's not as many competitors in the amateur level. Collegiate, we don't do regulation. We don't want to touch that side of things. The NCAA is out of esports for the next few years. They voted against it. Ironically, all the presidents wanted it to make money, and the athletic directors didn't want to spend their money on esports, so they all said no. And so that's what the NCAA decided. But there's opportunities with the National Association of Collegiate Esports and a few other groups like that are either in regulating esports in the collegiate level or hosting leagues to some extent. We compete, but kind of hard to find a direct competitor in the space unless you're looking at the same video games and that same kind of customer base. So
is there such a thing as like an esports academy? So like, say you have like a son who's 12 years old and he's really into esports. I mean, aside from just getting online and playing, are there other things that people do or events, I'm assuming, for them to continue to develop that?
Yeah, so that would be similar to what we're doing with Community Esports League by providing regular competition and some education. But one of our partners is AIM Labs. It's essentially an academy, so you can play first-person shooting games, and it helps you kind of aim better and get a much better handling with your mouse, and starts going over really basic skills, like if you were, I guess, like running drills or running suicides or something for a sport, this would be kind of the synonymous with that, being able to use these little tricks. And if you get really good at that trick, it's going to help benefit your game. So there's quite a few of those popping up. One, eFuse is a LinkedIn for esports as well. So being able to really host all of your kind of see your winning history, your stat history. It actually pulls from the video games since it's all digital information. We can kind of use the APIs to show that off. So that's another partner of ours that kind of fills that void of being able to kind of show off your resume to help you get to that next level.
Why should a college choose UEA over NACE?
Oh, definitely. Good question. Right now, they don't have to choose. I think there's enough open playing field that they can be in as many associations as they want. We're not exclusive by any means, and I think that's one of the ways going forward. We want these programs to be as successful as possible, and if we limit them from opportunities, that's kind of taken away from that. However, one of the things and benefits, it's free to join our association. You pay per tournament. Versus in a lot of sense, most associations you're paying just to be a part of it. So you're only really paying for what we're spending our time and money on, which is a benefit for the universities. And then because we're going publisher first, we have the rights with the publishers for everything we do. So Overwatch, we're actually doing a lot of their preseason, which is exclusive to us other than the company itself right now in collegiate space. So we're one of the onlys that can facilitate that tournament.
I have another online question. Do you think devices with the data processing remotely, like Stadia, has a place in esports, or for improving esports access to students without access to gaming computers?
Oh yeah, I think Stadia is way too early to be used in a competitive sense, but I think that opportunity is going to be able to really take away the need to buy a $3,000 computer when you can't afford it. And if we can get the opportunity, essentially you're streaming the video game right to your computer instead of playing it on the system. So you're playing on some server out in the cloud. As long as we have some good internet to be able to use, because you got to have the right service provider, that would actually be a very successful and huge opportunity for esports to make it even that much more accessible.
Joseph. It's a very inquisitive group.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Down the road, what type of company or business do you see like acquiring your business?
We've actually seen down the road, esports is going to follow, I think, the same trajectory as traditional sports as well, where there's a lot of those minor leagues out there or that conglomerate to be the NFL or the NBA or just kind of the history of most of those associations. That's what that was. So having certain assets or pieces to the business make it easier to enter a market by acquiring us than going or competing with us is kind of the intention there. Or we may start going acquiring companies and we may be that, so. I do appreciate you guys keeping me on my toes though.
I had this question isn't as interesting as some of them, but it's killing me. I have to know. So you mentioned classes that some universities have. Are we talking like strategy classes on like how to compete at League of Legends, or is it classes about the business model? What type of class?
Actually, the program that we created or helped create with the high school here in town, with Mays Complete High School, and that 180-day curriculum. Well, they were smart and wise and decided that they would make this curriculum a class for the teachers to teach that class. So at Wichita State, they're actually teaching this to the next generation of what's going to be this next 8 schools. Those teachers are actually in the class right now, learning from how they did it at Mays so that they can do it effectively here in USD 259 and some of the others. So,
but it's gaming curriculum, and it's how you win certain games. So there's like a section of the course on League of Legends and a section on, is that how that would work?
Very much so. They're learning a little, just enough that they can teach this on to the kids. Generally speaking, I don't think there's gonna, if you go to any school, I'm sure you're gonna have one gamer there that's gonna be pretty excited to teach that class. So you don't have to teach them too much about the video games themselves. But there is some sportsman-like conduct. There is certain skills that you gain from learning the video game itself, not just the side effects of them being interested in class. And so playing on a team and making sure that you fulfill your role, learning that whole strategy on, okay, this is what I'm wanting to accomplish. These are the different methodologies I can use. Which one am I going to take? That whole process is something that we teach in basketball and many other sports, and is kind of maybe glazed over as an actual skill that we're teaching. But that's something that we can also teach through video games. Maybe a few different skills that you do get to learn, as well as just, some digital literacy in general. I think there's 4 high schools here in town, and there's 4 middle schools. I can't remember all of the schools. UST 259 is rolling it out in I believe it's Southeast, Heights, Northwest, and I can't remember the last school. But there's thousands of high schools now that are actually teaching esports or have it as an extracurricular class, or not necessarily a class, but after school program or something like that. So it's exploded in the last 2 years because of the scholarships and the opportunity there for the students. So it's pretty wildfire.
Well, thank you, Ramsey. Generated a lot of interesting questions and conversation, and we appreciate you being here. I thank everybody online also. I'm sorry about the glitch at the beginning, forgetting to share the screen. We'll have a checklist next time. Parker, can you put up the last slide for us? The next speaker in September is going to be Jennifer Akers. She's a data scientist at AccuWeather here in town. So again, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. I hope this is the beginning of a new way of getting together in our new reality. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Coming locally, everybody